You know your dog better than almost anyone. You know the sound of their nails on the floor before you see them. You know exactly how they ask for dinner and how they look when they want to walk but don't want to bother you. You know their whole language. So when something shifts, just slightly, just enough, you feel it before you can name it. Maybe they stood in the hallway for a moment too long, staring at nothing. Maybe they stopped coming to greet you the way they used to. Maybe they woke up at 3 in the morning, restless for no reason you could find. And you told yourself the most natural thing in the world, he's just getting older. You might be right, but there's something else it could be. Something that affects a huge number of senior dogs and goes unrecognized in most of them. Not because owners don't care, but because nobody told them what to look for. Today, we're going to change that.
Here's the thing about getting older. It comes with real, legitimate changes. Dogs slow down, they sleep more, their joints get stiff, their hearing fades. These are true, and they're normal. But there's a condition that hides inside all of that. It moves slowly, quietly, borrowing the appearance of regular aging. And because it looks so much like what we expect from an old dog, most people never catch it early, when catching it early actually makes a difference. It's called canine cognitive dysfunction, and it is, in every meaningful way, the dog version of Alzheimer's disease. It starts to develop around 9 years of age, and one of the main reasons it goes undiagnosed is that the changes are gradual, easy to explain away as a normal part of getting older. It affects somewhere between 14 and 35% of dogs over 8 years old. That's not rare. That's your neighborhood. That might be your dog. And the reason this matters so much, the reason we're making this video, is that early intervention can genuinely improve a dog's quality of life. The earlier you see it, the more you can do. So what's actually going on inside? As dogs age, the brain goes through changes, some of them the same changes we see in humans with Alzheimer's. A substance called beta-amyloid protein begins to build up in the brain. It's toxic to brain cells. At the same time, blood flow to the brain decreases, and the neurons, the cells that carry information from one part of the brain to another, start to break down. Think of neurons like roads. A young brain has clear, well-traveled roads in every direction. Signals move fast, connections are strong. But with cognitive dysfunction, some of those roads start to close, detours form, and some destinations, memories, familiar faces, the layout of a room your dog has lived in for years, become harder to reach. This is not your dog being stubborn or distant or difficult. Their brain is changing in ways completely outside their control, and they have no framework to understand why the world suddenly feels less familiar. Veterinary researchers have identified 6 categories of signs to watch for. They form an acronym, DISHA. You don't need to memorize it, but you do need to recognize it when you see it in your own home. Disorientation. Your dog gets stuck in a corner and can't figure out how to back out. They walk to the wrong side of the door, to the hinge instead of the handle. They stand in a familiar room with a slightly lost expression, like they've briefly forgotten where they are. This isn't clumsiness. It's the brain struggling to map a space it used to know perfectly. Changes in social interaction. Your dog used to race to the door when you came home. Now, sometimes they don't come at all. Or they let you pet them for a moment and then quietly move away, which was never like them before. Reduced responsiveness to familiar people, sometimes even an aversion to being touched, is one of the documented signs of cognitive decline. It can feel like rejection. It isn't.
Sleep-wake cycle disturbances. They sleep most of the day and then pace at 2 in the morning. They seem tired but unsettled, as if rest doesn't quite reach them the way it used to. The brain's ability to regulate those rhythms weakens with cognitive dysfunction, and for both the dog and the family, it's often one of the hardest symptoms to live with. House soiling. A dog who has been reliably house-trained for years starts having accidents indoors, not because of a physical issue, not out of laziness, but because the learned behavior of house training is stored in memory, and that memory starts to fade. If this is happening to your senior dog, the last thing they need is frustration. They haven't forgotten the rule to spite you. They're just forgetting. Activity changes. Some dogs slow down dramatically, less interest in walks, in toys, in the games they used to love. Others go the other direction, restless, repetitive pacing, circling that seems to have no destination. Both can be the same condition, expressing itself differently.
Anxiety. A dog who is steady and calm for years starts startling easily, seeking reassurance constantly or becoming clingy in ways that feel new. The world is becoming less predictable to them, and anxiety is the natural response to a world that no longer makes complete sense. You don't need to see all six. Even 2 or 3, especially in combination, is worth a conversation with your vet.
It's worth pausing here for a moment and sitting with what this actually feels like from the inside. Your dog has lived in the same home with the same people, following the same rhythms for years. That world was legible to them, safe, known. And now, slowly, pieces of it are becoming unfamiliar. The room looks right, but doesn't feel right. The face coming through the door is someone they love, they can sense that, but for just a second, the name doesn't come. The instinct doesn't fire the way it should. They are not in constant despair, but they are, at times, confused in a way that has no explanation available to them, confused in a world they used to understand completely. Knowing that changes how you respond to the signs, and it changes what kind of care you can offer. There is no cure for cognitive dysfunction. That's the honest truth, and it deserves to be said clearly. But there is a lot that can be done, and the earlier you start, the more impact it has. The first step is always the same. Go to your vet and describe what you've been noticing. Write it down beforehand if that helps, when it happens, how often, what it looks like. Because cognitive dysfunction can share symptoms with other conditions like thyroid disease, arthritis, or kidney issues, your vet will want to rule those out first. That process is important, not a detour. Once a diagnosis is established, there are real tools available. Certain diets rich in antioxidants and a type of fat called medium-chain triglycerides can provide an alternative energy source for the brain, which becomes less able to use glucose efficiently as cognitive dysfunction progresses. There are also medications. Selegiline is one that's been approved specifically for this condition, and supplements that your vet can guide you through.
And then there's something that costs nothing but time: cognitive enrichment. Regular play, varied toys, social interaction, gentle exercise, and even learning simple new commands has been shown to support brain function in aging dogs. The brain, even an aging one, responds to being used. Short, gentle, enjoyable engagement, a new sniff walk, a simple puzzle feeder, a quiet training session with a treat, keeps connections active that might otherwise go quiet. You are not helpless here. You have more influence over your dog's cognitive aging than you probably realize. The gray muzzle, the slower pace, the longer naps, there's something genuinely tender about a dog growing old with you. It's one of the quieter privileges of having them in your life. But if the slowness starts to look like confusion, if the distance starts to feel like something more than rest, trust that feeling. Look a little closer. They spend years learning your every signal, your every mood, your whole language. They watched you the way only dogs do. The least we can do is watch them back, carefully enough to see what they can't tell us themselves.